Hello, everybody. Hello, welcome back. Welcome back for this live stream, another Roma Press live stream, and what is the final live stream of the 2024-2025 season. Guys, we have come to an end. This is it. For such a long time over the course of this season, so many times we found ourselves praying for this day to come, and it's finally here. Roma complete this season. They end up fifth. They end up qualifying for Europa League. As we know, they miss out on Champions League with Juve winning over Venezia. Our hopes for Champions League football were off the table, unfortunately. But on the other hand, there is a lot to look forward to. There is also plenty to take away from this season, plenty to look back on, reflect ahead of next season as Roma prepare to face this upcoming season with a new coach, a new CEO. So, before getting into that, before getting into this summary of what, in my opinion, was one of the most difficult, most challenging seasons to cover, as someone who does this every year, every day, every hour. This was quite, for sure, one of the most challenging seasons that we've had to deal with in recent years. Before we summarize it, we review it, we discuss the good and the bad. I just wanted to thank everyone for their support this season. It really meant a lot. Thank you so much to everyone who just joined in, everyone who started following us on social media, on YouTube, whatever. Anyone who signed up to our Patreon. This season was tough. I know it, even from a fan point of view. When the team is doing bad, you don't really want to interact much with the material. So just wanted to say thank you guys. It means a lot that you've been there for us, and thank you for following, thank you for sticking with us, because again, it sure as hell wasn't an easy season to be a Roma fan. So very much appreciated. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to a lot of people here that follow us on a consistent basis. Germanicus, hey Germanicus, we got Ankoba, we got Vic. Thank you so much for being here with us. We got Jeff. Thank you so much, Jeff. Jeff says, thank you, Andy and John, for another season. Hopes John's recovery is almost complete. Optimistic for the near future. Any bureaucratic updates on the stadium? First of all, thank you so much. We hope to be back with John in June. Let's see how it works out. But thank you so much for your thoughts, Jeff. Bureaucratic updates on the stadium. Well, the bureaucratic updates are always very, very similar, in the sense that it's these tiny steps one after the other. Right now, Roma have begun the archaeological excavations. As you all know, Rome is anywhere you open a hole, there is something buried there. So that's what they've tried to do in Pietralata. They've had some opposition. There were days where the workers that came to start digging and actually inspect the ground for archaeological elements, they had to stop, and they had to be escorted by the police because there were protesters there, from organizations and groups that claim that the stadium will destroy the local nature, local fauna, and so on. Uh, this has happened in the past. These differences in opinion between these organizations and groups of locals who claim that any kind of new infrastructure will be a threat to what is already there. But the point is that there is not much there to begin with in Pietralata. The stadium also, the project itself involves a vision for a lot of greenery. So anyway, this is the stage we're in right now. They have to get these excavations done. They have to take a closer look at the ground. That's when they're, if there is nothing there, that's when they are going to get, hopefully, the green light to continue and proceed, and hopefully start building actually. So that's what we're looking at, Jeff. Thank you so much for your support, man. Okay. Buenas. uh, let's see. Oh, Diego, buonasera. Thanks to you, Roma Press, for keeping us up to date with our favorite team. You, Andy, and John are the goats. Thanks. Thank you so much, Diego. I appreciate it very much. Hello, Andy from Transylvania. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for the support. As we wait for more people to join us, just a reminder: click on the like button so it helps us get more visibility. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so. Because I think yesterday, I know I was as Roma were playing, I was traveling, and then it just didn't work logistically. But I also felt like coming on here yesterday and trying to discuss this season after what we witnessed yesterday, after the kind of lingering disappointment that I bet we all felt due to the circumstances that led to Roma missing out on Champions League football. It was really unfortunate the way it happened. um, I thought it would have been more constructive to take a bit of time to reflect, to come together and take a closer look at the whole season, because I actually think that this was really uh, a season for the ages, in the sense that this was a big test of a season. I really, this was even I when we started doing this with John, it was 2018, and obviously we went on to have a pretty miserable season that year, 2018 2019. That's when we have that massive crash out with Eusebio Di Francesco. Monchi leaves, Di Francesco's fired. Anyway, it was a bad season. El Sharawi was, I believe, our top goal scorer, which tells you all you need to know. um, but this season was much tougher, I think. In retrospect, really, there were moments, there were large stretches uh, up until Ranieri's arrival, of course, where I really was afraid of where this was going to go. And then with Ranieri at the helm, obviously I continued to have doubts regarding how much pressure this team can take. Now, we witnessed Roma go out and secure 46 points in the return leg of the season. The second half of the season, Roma recorded 46 points. Now that's unbelievable. That's something that hadn't been achieved since 2016, 2017 with Luciano Spalletti at the helm. This was really remarkable. This is more than any other team did in Serie A in the second half of the season. Obviously, we made up for all the points that we lost in the first half, but throughout that the entire second half, I kept thinking to myself, how much more can they take? How much more can they win? How long can they keep this up? Because I was really afraid that once we would hit that wall, once that inevitable moment came about, we would not be able to react. Thankfully, we had Claudio Ranieri at the helm, and we're going to discuss him in greater detail. But it's really, we're looking at a season that is all encompassing. It there's so many stories here that are worth getting into. First, let me just check the comments. Obviously, if you have any questions or remarks, please write it down in the chat. I'll be happy to read it out. Hey, Mazin, thank you so much for being here. Um, we got Eddie. Hello, Andy. What type of coach do you expect in the next season? Some bigger name or mid tier, or maybe a newbie like De Rossi? Um, Listen, this is this is the question that is on everybody's mind right now. And to be honest with you, to be perfectly honest with you, it's also on my mind. I'm very, very intrigued by this whole situation. I'm even more intrigued now because Claudio Ranieri came out in the open 2 3 times already and said to the media that the coach is already, we have an agreement with the coach. It's already done. He'll be announced whenever Friedkin feels like it, blah blah blah. um, and then on the other hand, we have a whole lineup of reliable journalists, in Filippo Biafora, in Gianluca Di Marzio, of guys who are saying that no, Roma don't have anything on lock. Um, there is Cesc Fabregas, there is there, there was obviously that whole debacle with Jurgen Klopp from La Stampa. Now we are not even gonna get into that because that was crazy in of itself. But we're talking about Roma completing the season and so many names coming out. And Gasperini with Atalanta, will he renew his contract with Atalanta? Well, on one hand, Gasperini wants a move up. On the other hand, he feels comfortable in Bergamo. Now, today we get a report that Atalanta are not very happy with the way that Gasperini has handled these contractual talks. And where are Roma in all of this? To be honest with you, I would like, if you're asking me who I would like or who do I expect? If I say, because I don't know who to expect. That's the thing. We've seen so many names that are contradicting each other. How can you compare Giampiero Gasperini with Cesc Fabregas? I mean, we're talking about, even in terms of experience, that's complete. Not even talking about the way the playing style or whatever. We're talking about experience, because betting on someone like Cesc Fabregas is one thing, then relying on someone like Gasperini is a whole other thing. Um, what do the Friedkins want to do at this point? That's the thing. That's the question that nobody seems to be able to answer in the media. Um, the reporters keep running in circles. That's the thing. We keep getting the same names, and if we don't get the same names, we will get one surprise name, and then that same name will get absolutely denied categorically by Roma, just like Nuno Espirito Santo, just like Jurgen Klopp, Adolf Hutter, all three names of foreign coaches who get denied by Roma. We have who do we have? Oh, Ernesto Valverde. He's mentioned as one of the main names on Roma's shortlist. What happens next? Uh, Athletic Bilbao renew his contract. So, Eddie, I would like to be able to answer this question, but I don't think anyone in Italy can say with a straight face what's the reality of the situation. Um, Mazin, thanks for the season coverage, man. Keep up the good work. Say hi to John, please. Thank you so much, Mazin. I appreciate it. Peter, ciao, Andy. Uh, ciao, Andy. How do you rate this season? A success given preseason expectations, a success given first half performance. This is, I think, I mean, this is the overarching point of this season. Because this season was really bad, guys. This season was so bad that there were moments where I was afraid, where I felt like coming on here and talking into a microphone wasn't doing any good, where even just looking at the articles that I had to write, or the press conferences that I had to transcribe, all those press conferences with Ivan Juric, I thought to myself, man, what's the point? Where is this gonna go? There's just no point. The team was pathetic. The team was sad. The team was deplorable. The team was empty, shell shocked, and nobody was happy. The fans were unhappy. The media kept building nonsense stories out of thin air. It seemed like it was getting worse and worse and worse. And so, does that make the second half of the season that much more impressive? Does it make does the second half of the season make this a good season? Because it was really remarkable. I mean, we're talking about a team that put up numbers that not even Napoli or Inter put up in that same period of time, while also fighting in Europa League, obviously crashing out against Athletic Bilbao, crashing out in Coppa Italia. But nonetheless, in the league, what Ranieri was able to do with the same bunch of players that we saw in the first half of the season be so bad, he was able to turn it around. And so that's why even yesterday, Sure, we felt disappointed that it wasn't enough, that winning against Torino wasn't not enough to guarantee us Champions League football. But were we angry? Were we really sad? I don't know. I think at the end of the day, what won out is the feeling that this team really gave it all. In that second half, you know, you can, as I said many times on here, I know people felt critical of the way the team was playing in certain games, that we weren't able to score, that some players like Dovbik were ineffective, blah blah blah. But eh, at the end of the day, what we cannot criticize is the level of effort and commitment these guys put in for Ranieri. That is absolutely not up for discussion. So I think, you know, preseason expectation. I think if you look at what happened in preseason, and if you look at what happened in the opening weeks, nothing made sense. Preseason didn't make sense. The team was so disjointed with De Rossi at the helm in preseason that we thought to ourselves, are these guys even going to wake up? Like, is this are they just in chill mode, or is this the way the team wants to play this season? And I also was puzzled by it, and I thought, let Daniele De Rossi cook. But then the season started, and the team was sleepwalking through games. Second game of the season, we get our asses beaten by Empoli at home. Remember that? Paulo Dybala announces, "I'm staying," and his first game back really on the pitch for Roma is Empoli beating us in front of our home crowd, sold out home crowd. That was that already sort of showed that something's not working and something may go wrong, very much so, very quickly. It did. And so sure, if I think about that game, if I think about the first game of the season against Cagliari, if I think about um, the way the way Genoa drew with Coney the Winter in those final minutes, sure, I do think that overall this season is good in terms of how it turned out, in the fact that we managed to win back so many points. We managed to climb our way up the table, which seemed impossible for large stretches of the season. We put Lazio past us, which also seemed impossible, and and we fought. We actually fought for Champions League, which is remarkable because it hadn't happened in a long time. Not even with Mourinho were we ever really competing for Champions League football. This season, we played for it until the very last second. So, hey, is that success? Obviously, if you look at Napoli winning their second Scudetto in what, 3 years, that's it's not it's that's painful. It's not enough. It's underwhelming. But we have to remember our dimension. We have to remember what each team does. Napoli have been qualifying for Champions League on a regular basis for the last I don't know how many years, with the exception obviously of last year where they end up without Europe. But nonetheless, we're talking about two teams in a completely different development process. So, yeah, sure. Is it being able to climb our way out of that hole that we dug, that grave, could be considered a success, Peter. Um, let's see. Oh, uh, Vic, Andy, do we have a clear idea on what Ranieri's next role will be? Will he be like a technical director, or someone like Franco Baldini was to Jim Pallotta? That's a very good question, Vic, because Roma have been cryptic about that, and Ranieri has been also cryptic about that. But I do think it's going to be something akin to Franco Baldini with Jim Pallotta. He said, "I'm going to be an advisor to the president." But he also specified that he will be involved in all discussions regarding coaching matters, and also obviously the recruitment. He will be the link between the president and Florent Ghisolfi and the coach. Now, will that how long will that continue for? I don't know. Is this something that is strictly for this summer? Obviously, he's I believe he signed a, it will be a 2-year contract or something like that. But how involved will he be? I mean, at the end of the day, Claudio Ranieri, again, 73 years old. Probably the one thing that he wants the most is to just chill at home. Obviously, being an executive is not the same as being a coach, where you have to travel all the time with the team and so on. But mm, this is definitely, he wants to be active. Like, this was probably his one demand to the Friedkins, and I think he was actually quite public about it. And also in terms of, and with the media, he said that, mm, I want to be listened to. I want to know that what I'm advising, what I'm saying, results in something. Clearly, he will not be there just from an image perspective. He's not going to be a brand ambassador. He's not going to be just a guy waving his hand at the fans. No, this is, Ranieri wants to be involved in the project that he was sold by the Friedkins. The Friedkins, when they met him in London, remember, in November, they sat him down. They offered him this temporary contract to become Roma's head coach until the end of the season. And then when they started to discuss the idea of him potentially staying on as an executive, uh, they told him, listen, you're going to be a precious source of knowledge for us, because we need your guidance. That's key. And I think that's what Ranieri right now feels like. He feels like somebody needs him. The club needs him. That's good. So proud of the lads. What a great season. Where is Ranieri's statue? Absolutely. Uh, Mazin, Fabregas is our man. I really thought it was going to be Roberto Mancini. I'm afraid of Thiago Motta 2.0. I keep seeing these comments, Mazin, to comparing the Fabregas, Thiago Motta, obviously two coaches, former players who become coaches, relatively little experience. Um, Although Thiago Motta actually had more experience than Cesc Fabregas. It seems like Cesc Fabregas now is the cool name. He's being linked with the Inter. He's being linked with Milan. And it's funny to see how people treat Fabregas versus someone like Motta, or versus someone like Farioli. Farioli is being laughed at. The fans, they seemed, I saw a lot of people be upset with the idea of Farioli potentially coaching Roma, even though one could argue that Farioli has much more experience in terms of coaching on the big stage. Um, a lot of fans put quite a bit of importance on Serie A. And I don't know why, because even coaching like a team like Como, that's that's not the same as coaching Ajax, for example, in a title race, which obviously Farioli lost. Uh, PSV were able to recover all 9 points, and Farioli lost on the last match day. He which is the reason why he stepped down. But we're talking about Fabregas, who is in his first season Serie A, Serie B before, versus a lot of other coaches that have much more experience, not only in Serie A but just overall. And what do what do Roma want to do? That's always the question. I don't know if Fabregas is our man. I think from what Filippo Biafra said earlier today is that Roma were in contact with Fabregas. Is he the only option that they're targeting? I don't believe so. You never focus your whole attention on one candidate if you don't have a secured agreement. From what I understand, there is a verbal agreement with Fabregas, and we know how much that, how little that actually means. A verbal agreement when there's still a club to be dealt with, and that is Como, who want to keep Fabregas at all costs. Um, oh, Andy, what was your favorite storyline from the season? Which story do you think went underreported? You know what? I think I was thinking about it, because I had actually planned to talk about best player of the season, where most flop of the season, most surprising player of the season. best signing, worst signing, best game, worst game, and we can go through that. But I do think that one of the better storylines in my book is, well, I have two, but maybe I'll focus on this one. Matias Sule. I really do believe that Matias Sule is a great story because so many times I've seen this go the wrong way. And not only me, guys, all of you can attest to that. That how many times have we seen a young player join Roma for a big sum and the pressure getting to him and underperforming and then leaving the club? How many times have we seen that? How many times have we had that same experience of watching someone like Patrick Schick, a player whom everybody wants, and Roma finally get him, and they splurge a lot of money, and the fans are excited, and everybody's going crazy, and then the pressure is too much. He's not able to get into the tactical mechanisms of the team. Everything goes bad for him, and we are left with a disappointing, demotivated player whom we sell to the first club offering any kind of money. Um, too many times. Too many times. I even think of someone like Cengiz Under, or Justin Clivert. Obviously, the expectations for those guys were a bit different. The money that you paid for them was a bit less than what you paid for Matias Sule, but I'm talking about that kind of profile of a young player who's hungry for success, who's full of enthusiasm, wants to prove himself on the big stage, and then it just doesn't work. And the fans are all there behind him, and then they're not until they're not, and until they start booing and whistling him. I was terrified that it was going to happen with Matias Sule. I was actually quite certain that it was going to happen with Matias Sule when whenever he was on the pitch, he was nowhere to be found. Whenever he was on the pitch, he was a complete non-factor. When it seemed like Daniel De Rossi didn't know what to do with him, whether to play him with Dybala, whether not to play him with Dybala, it seemed like when he finally scored that goal against Verona with Juric, again, one of the worst games, and I'll get to that. It seemed like, oh my God, finally, maybe this is the moment where he unlocks himself. Nope. No, guess what? Ranieri arrives, benches him, and Matias Sule disappears. And then there is talk of him leaving Roma in January. And I thought to myself, okay, there it is. This is it. It ends after 6 months. He's going to go to, I don't know, Real Betis. There was also Bologna offering something for him. I was like, sure, okay. There goes our 26 million euro investment. There goes a player for the future that we all saw and we all agreed is a special player, and somehow, one way or another, it didn't work. And then slowly but surely, that's the storyline. Slowly but surely, I don't know how Ranieri got it done, and I don't know what Matias Sule, what kind of motivational coach he found, but he started to find meaning in those 10, 15-minute tidbits that he was given to play, which is very rare. Because you look at someone like Tommaso Baldanzi, and Tommaso Baldanzi hasn't been able to make any kind of impact by playing those 5 to 10 minute games. It's quite embarrassing, to be honest. The way that Tommaso Baldanzi's role has been reduced in comparison to Matias Sule, just completely skyrocketing in terms of minutes, in terms of impact. But that's the story: is that by slowly, steadily chipping away, Matias Sule was able to carve out a role in the team, in the starting 11, to the point where Paulo Dybala goes down. Who goes to the bench? Alexis Salzmakers, not Matias Sule. Matias Sule stays in the lineup. Salzmakers goes to the bench. And I mean, look at Matias Sule's goal contributions in the last few weeks. He's got 6 goals contributions. I mean, it's unbelievable numbers for a guy that seemed to be on his way out, that seemed to have not found his groove here, and everything pointed to him thriving somewhere else, where there is less pressure, where there is a coach whose style is more suited for him. No, Matias Sule made it work. And I'm so happy because this is a special, special player. You need to believe in him. And we saw it. From the goal that he scored against the in the derby to last night's assist. Matias Sule has been a difference maker for Roma, and I'm so happy for him. So that's, in my opinion, that's the greatest storyline for this season. Um, Ranieri is a magician. Man, I can't shake the bittersweet feeling that if we only had one more draw, we would be in Champions League. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Friedkins did critical mistakes this season. Shame. I think the Friedkins, the team, the coach. I mean, not there's not a single person that wasn't at fault this season, because to also not say anything bad about, say, for example, what happened in the summer. Again, I can't shake it. Daniele De Rossi. What happened in preseason? Why wasn't that team ready in September? Why were they playing so bad? Why was it all so crap? Why did Daniele De Rossi find himself in a situation where he got sacked 4 match days into the season? Why was that a reality that we were living? Why wasn't that team locked and loaded? So, Friedkins, Ghisolfi, the team, the coaches, it all is part of one big melting pot of ideas that didn't work, that clashed with each other. Why was Ivan Juric even there? Why did we believe in him? Why did we even find ourselves in a position to call back someone like Claudio Ranieri? Why did Claudio Ranieri accept? That's the thing. Why was he so crazy to come out of retirement for us? We need an experienced coach, says Ankoba. Probably will be Gasperini, because Atalanta plays a similar formation. But Gasperini, like Fabregas, is still under contract, so it's not an easy situation. That's the thing, guys. We're talking about coaches, but a lot of the coaches that I'm pretty sure interest Roma are under contract. Montella, Turkey; Gasperini, Atalanta; Fabregas, Como, and so on and so forth. So, um, let's see. Jonas, I don't want another young and up and coming coach. It always fails. I don't want an old hard nosed drill instructor. The frail mentality of the squad can't handle it. We need a father figure. Easier said than done. Who's the father figure? That's my question, because I think it's not easy to find the father figure. If you're referring to Claudio Ranieri, yeah, Claudio Ranieri, it's one of a kind. There's not many people that fit that profile. Most coaches, I mean, even the ones that we most admire, right? I mean, look at Napoli, look at Conte, look at Antonio Conte, look at Gasperini. Those are the guys that seem to succeed in Serie A, and those guys are pretty mean dudes. Are we forced to sell Indica? That's a good question. We shall know soon, because obviously Roma will have to generate some revenue, make the famous plusvalenza, the capital gain off of player sales, in order to comply with financial fair play and the settlement agreement and blah blah blah. There is ways and ways to avoid that happening. I mean, a sale of that importance, I'm pretty sure Roma will try to keep Miles VR and Manu Kone and Evan Dika. Those are going to be their priority players to keep. That's why it was so crucial to get rid of someone like Enzo Lefe, whose obligation was triggered as Sunderland got promoted to the Premier League. That in of itself already generates that kind of revenue that you need. We're looking also at selling Samuel Dahl to Benfica. If, like in previous years, if you're able to make up for that, and find ways to sell players that you do not deem key to the project, then you can hope in keeping someone like Ndika. Then obviously Ndika's agent and Ndika himself can come to Roma and say, listen, guys, I want to play in the Champions League. So what can you offer me? And if Roma say, well, we can offer you 5 million euros per season, and Ndika still says, well, I don't want it, then you have to sell him. That's that's how it works. That's the law of modern day football. Ranieri gave us faith in the team, showed us where Roma belong and can get to if the team and fans give everything for Roma. Ranieri showed that there was nothing essentially wrong with the team. Sure, it's not a perfect squad, but it was still a team that was underperforming, and we all knew it. I know that a lot of people were tempted to say we're crap, but we all knew that the team was underperforming. We had to be better than being near the relegation zone. We had to be. So we can also talk about flops, because I do think that there were several players who were meant to come through for us and did not. You could argue whether them not coming through for us was the reason why we were crap, or vice versa. We were crap, so that's why they were crap and they couldn't come through. I'm thinking of Mats Hummels in the beginning, who just, I mean, he couldn't play a single minute, didn't feel ready. There was even a recent interview where he said, I just couldn't, I couldn't be motivated. I didn't feel good fitness wise. And then, who in my opinion is the flop of the season for Roma, I'm just gonna put it here, uh, Mario Hermoso. Mario Hermoso, a guy who, with Kevin Danso failing his medical, we all had an expectation of this guy coming in as a free agent who was one of the most highly demanded players on the market. Mario Hermoso had offers from basically every single country. He'd rejected countless proposals, and then picked Roma as a free agent in September. All this expectation, fans were there. This guy who had been a rock for Diego Simeone, who had been fantastic for Atletico Madrid, and for Roma, he was a complete disaster. I mean, he never looked good. And I think, is that the player or is that the team? Was Mario Hermoso unlucky to find himself in a Roma team that did not know what the hell they wanted to do? I mean, we remember he's at fault actually for Coney de Winter scoring that equalizer in that game against Genoa. Mario Hermoso never found his footing. Was that his fault, or was that just one of the symptoms of Roma being so bad in the first half? Let's see. Oh wow, Germanicus, tell us what players you keep. Who needs to go? I said, I mean, who do we keep? Again, I think we can all agree the player of the season, guys. It's no big secret. It's Miles VR. Miles VR is the player of the season. Miles VR rightfully is voted best goalkeeper in Serie A. He's absolutely fantastic. He saves you so many times. One could create probably a 12-hour clip montage of Miles VR saves this season. He's just an all-around amazing goalkeeper, a figure that we needed as badly as we needed Ranieri to get ourselves out of this slump. So Miles VR is one of the players that you must keep at all costs. The same way Manu Kone is, in my opinion, our best signing this season. Manu Kone, undoubtedly best signing, together with Matias Sule, but in a different way, because I do think that Manu Kone was so consistent, given everything that went on with the team, given his young age. Let's remember, this is a young player. There was not a moment where I thought, "Oh wow, he's struggling." No, I even in the worst moments, Manu Kone showed his quality on the pitch. Was everywhere, always. Whether that midfield worked or not, it didn't really depend on Manu Kone. What he was, the job that he was tasked with, he was doing it. One of the things, obviously, that he needs to work on is scoring goals. Because so many times he found himself in a situation where he could have made a difference in front of goal, did not. But he is definitely a player that you keep for the future. The same way Evandika, you one of the keys in creating consistency and keeping a team focused throughout the years is to have that backline. And whether you like Gianluca Mancini or not, Gianluca Mancini will stay, obviously, with guys like Brian Cristante and Lorenzo Pellegrini, whose position at the club is, in my opinion, compromised and quite uncertain. Um, Gianluca Mancini will stay. Well, you need to give continuity to that defense with him and Evan Dika. You need to find better guys next to them. You have to find someone who actually can fill that role that Hummels was not able to fill in consistently this season. But I do think that those are Sviar, Manu Kone, Evan Dika, Mattias Sule. You have to keep them, and I will protect someone like Devin Wrench also. I think a guy who came in January did actually well. Yes, he got eaten alive but by Atalanta, but who didn't? So and then obviously if you ask me about who needs to go, I do think that at some point you have to get rid of certain players that just, yes, I'm not saying they stink up the place, but they make the team obsolete. Guys like Stefan El Sharawi, Brian Cristante, Lorenzo Pellegrini are guys who have come to a point where they understand that there's not much more they can give. Today I even thought about it. El Sharawi was one of the players who on Instagram said, oh, we were so close uh this great achievement, referring to us qualifying to Champions League. And I thought to myself, Jesus Christ, I mean, this guy has been here. He was here when John and I started this thing together in 2018. He was our best player in that season, and that's the first season back then where we missed out on Champions League. Here he is referring to this potential return to the Champions League as some sort of great achievement when Napoli are celebrating their Scudetto. And I thought to myself, okay, if you want to succeed or if you want to be better, at some point you have to part ways with guys like that, guys that come from a different time, guys that don't really have much more to give. What does Stefan El Sharawi give to you right now? I'm not saying that this is a guy who steals money, that makes so much money that Roma, they're suffering because of it. No, Stefan El Sharawi, if he renews his contract, his salary will be spread. Roma will be paying him a lower fee. Fantastic. But I'm just saying, you need guys who are actually aiming for something other than to be able to publish an Instagram story where they clap to themselves, they applaud themselves, they pat themselves on the back for almost doing something that was the initial objective at the beginning of the season. Um, so that old guard needs to go, and I do think that sort of that's the memo. I mean, Cristante is thinking of leaving Roma. He was in talks with other clubs in January. There was talk of him leaving Roma in January. So just like there was talk of Lorenzo Pellegrini leaving Roma, the injury will definitely complicate things. It was a season full of turmoil. I don't know what exactly happened, what ruptured inside Roma to have such a poor start. For me, giving too much power to Linus Luku was the main starting issue. Farioli has experience, but how he ended the season with Ajax is shameful. Below of 9-point advantage with 4 or 5 games to go just isn't too reassuring. You know what, Ankoba, I do think that sure it's shameful. First of all, I must say, look at the squad that Ajax had this season. Look at the kind of defense that Farioli had to. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. When I saw that he was playing with Rugani, I started to laugh. Second of all, I really do think that coaches are formed most of all by their greatest disappointments. Look at Vincenzo Italiano. If Vincenzo Italiano learned something this year. If he's about to renew his contract with Bologna for 3.5 million, there's a reason for that. It's because he lost two consecutive Conference League finals in a very, very similar manner. Do you know what happened? He learned from that. He learned from that. And you know what happened next? He won a Coppa Italia with Bologna, their first silverware in 50 years. I mean, so those failures, those historic shortcomings, those shameful defeats, um, as you say, losing, blowing a 9 point advantage with 4 or 5 games to go in the season, those are things that can only reinforce you in the long run if you're a young coach, if you're ambitious. So I wouldn't write off Farioli like that. Friedkins should go for Conte. Juve said Tudor will come to the US for the Club World Cup. Greetings from Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you so much, Mario. Hello, Andy. Unfortunately, no top four, but do you think we will be able to keep Indica over the summer due to financial fair play? Again, Vincent, I think it's really the Roma will be able to, for sure, in my opinion, to generate the kind of revenue that they need by selling other players. That process is already in motion. I mentioned Enzo Lefe, who's being sold to Sunderland. I mentioned Samuel Dahl, who's being sold to Benfica. If Roma played smart, they can't keep Evan Dika. The question always comes back to the player. Is the player convinced of continuing to play for Roma, or will he aim for Champions League side? And then Roma can't really do much about it except for offering more money to the player. But then if the player says, well, no, I have other ambitions, you got to let him go. Let's see. Hello, Andy. Who would be your favorite coach out of realistic names? Oh my God, realistic names. It's funny because realistic names, anything can be a realistic name right now. It seems like everybody is in the run for it. And you know what? Even when they mentioned Jurgen Klopp, I thought to myself, man, this is so crazy. And that article by La Stampa was insane. There was some things written in that article that really made me laugh, but there was part of me that thought, you know what, if Dan Friedkin really sets his mind to it, I mean, the man who produced Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon and Dunkirk and so many other movies, and the man who flies his jet all the time, blah blah blah, I thought to myself, man, if he just puts the money on the table, even Jurgen Klopp can be a possibility. Just like Jose Mourinho didn't seem like a possibility until he was announced out of the blue as Roma's head coach. But I do think very well of Farioli, and I also think very well of Gasperini. So sue me. We're talking about very different profiles, but I do think that Roma need a bit of this and a bit of that. It really depends on what is happening behind the scenes. What are the discussions revolving? Because there's so many times where we've seen Roma mention the Atalanta model. Where, well, do we want, even with Daniele De Rossi at the helm, do we want to reproduce that? Do we want to reproduce that with Gasperini at the helm? Do we believe in someone else? How closely do we follow this model for how many years? Because Atalanta has been a work in progress for 9, 10, 12 years. So are we committing to that? um, will Cristante and Pellegrini be here next season? If not, who would you get as their upgrade? As I said, I think Cristante will not be here next season. I do think Pellegrini, with this injury, will be difficult to move him because this guy is not going to be ready for preseason. The timeline for his recovery is about 4 months at best. So uh, we and it seems like Pellegrini doesn't want to leave, whereas Cristante, his agent, has been trying to move him, and I do think that he's going to have some market value this summer. I mean, there is going to be teams interested in him. There's talk of Como, ready to pay something like 10 million, whatever. Obviously, these are things that are just being said right now. But I do believe that if you had asked me this 2 months ago, I would have said both players would be gone. Right now, I'm saying Cristante will be gone. Mazin agreed on Sule, but do Roma keep Dybala for one more season to mentor him, or Sule should be our starting player? We move on from Dybala. Well, actually, it was funny. Let me get just water. It was funny after the match against Torino. I wasn't expecting it, but Paulo Dybala obviously traveled with the team. He was on the sidelines, and he was asked what does he want to do, and he said, "I want to continue at Roma." He still has one more year on his contract, but that was a clear sign of Dybala asking for another year to 2027. Roma have not addressed this situation. I don't think that's a priority for them. I think the belief is we end our rapport with Dybala in 2026, just like we would ideally end our rapport with Leandro Paredes, who also seemed hell bent on leaving Roma to return to Boca Juniors. And then after the match against Torino, he posts a message on Instagram. And we know that these things don't really matter much, but they still say something because the guy just goes out of his way and says, "Well, see you all next season." What? Up until a week ago, we kept hearing that this guy has an agreement with Boca Juniors. Boca Juniors want him for the Club World Cup. I mean, so it's very complicated. I do think that Sule needs to keep working closely with Dybala because that's a special player in the making. The more time you spend with Dybala, the better it will be. And I do think that Dybala has the characteristics to be that kind of leader, on the pitch, but also on the bench. Now, whether his ego can take it, whether he's willing to actually sort of fade into the background slowly, steadily, Dybala, when fit, is still your best player. Let's remember that. Good evening, Andy. Hope you're doing well. Hope we have you next season. Also, Rick, thank you so much, Rick. That's my hope as well. So thank you so much for your support. Vincent, I must say that my favorite story of the season is Shomurodov. Can't still understand how this man went from bottom of Mourinho's food chain to almost a key player in the squad. I when I said that I have two favorite storylines, I was also referring to Shomurodov's because that's really it's so underrated. It's so underrated to think that this guy was when we saw him stick around this summer and we thought to us, God, we kept waiting for that reliable striker to come in and serve as backup to Artem Dovbyk, and we kept waiting and waiting, and instead we only got Shomurodov off the bench. And for so long, that idea was complete. I mean, it did not appeal to us. Shomurodov hasn't had a good few years in recent times. Serie A hasn't been too kind for him since he moved on from Genoa to join Roma. And kind of like Sule, by chipping away, by making the best of those 5 to 10 to 15 minute stretches, he was able to come through for us. So brilliant, really. I mean, he's put up the best stats for a backup striker since Borja Mayoral. So a really, really good season for him. A great turnaround for him. I would also mention Zeki Salik, who a lot of people kept blasting him, and I even made fun of John for sticking by him. But Zeki Salik turned it around in the final 3 to 4 months. Zeki Salik is one of the better players on the squad. Like, if you think about the way we lost against Bilbao, Zeki Salik was not there. Zeki Salik was what, suspended? Hummels plays instead of him, and we remember what happens next. Pellegrini is the flop of the season, second highest paid player, club captain, not new to the team, so doesn't have that excuse. I agree. Pellegrini and Hermoso, because both players should have been better. Both players have the experience, both players have the quality. The expectations for both players were that these guys have to be of importance to the team. and the opposite happened. The team was better when they were not on the pitch. The team was better defensively without Hermoso, and the team was much better and much more organized with Pellegrini off the pitch. So two guys that should have been important, that were not enough for Roma at a difficult time. They were nowhere to be found. I agree with you. Um, I am bummed Pellegrini is leaving. He was awesome when I came on. I followed Mourinho and stayed after he left. Let's see. I don't. I mean, again, the guy is injured. The timeline for recovery is quite long. Nobody's going to pay money to get a player who just had surgery, and we don't know in what state he's going to be in after his return. Um, After his form this season, is Shomurodov the number one striker? No. Marin, I love him. I love him to death. King Eldor and whatnot, but no, no, no. You gotta. We have to reflect on Dovbyk. I do think that Dovbyk needs to be kept. I do think that this is a player. I said it many times. You cannot abandon a player like that. You did not abandon Edin Dzeko after his first season at Roma, which was tragicomic. You cannot do it with Dovbyk. You have to stick by him. Obviously, these are considerations that will be made with the player, his entourage. But no, the Shomurodov cannot be your number one option. I just ask that we don't sign a project manager. Too many coaches have been given a 5-year contract just for them to be sacked after 6 months. Well, that's a good point. I don't know if Daniele De Rossi signed the 3-year contract, and he's still he's still pulling that money from the bank. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying Daniele De Rossi is sitting very comfortably at home. He said many times that he wants to coach again. I hope it happens for him, because it would be quite sad if he continued to make money off of Roma after clearly showing a lot of promise, and he needs to be given a chance. I hope it happens for him, because to be on a 3-year contract from Roma after being sacked by them, it's not a good look for a young coach. We should hopefully get some money for Zaleski to Inter. Yes, there's Giovanni. There's talk of about 6 million euros for him. Are we really keeping Gurna Duat? Would like to see more of him. That's the plan, in the sense that, as our friend Filippo Biafra reported, we have an option to buy him for about 19.6 million. But Roma do not want that. They are trying to renegotiate a discount with Salzburg, but the player wants to stay at Roma, and Roma want to keep Gurna Duat. They think he shows a lot of promise, and Ranieri likes him a lot, and the player loves being at Roma. So I do think eventually they'll get it done, but we know how it works in these situations. Salzburg want to make money. Roma do not and cannot pay that kind of fee, so it'll take some time. Let's see. Can Roma just loan Paredes for Club World Club and scratches it? That'd be funny, Peter. That'd be very funny, because Paredes, in my opinion, is a very unpredictable character, and yet such a pivotal player for Roma. He's made such a difference ever since he's been back in the rotation. He's been fantastic. He makes you realize what kind of player he is when he's on a good day. He's just I don't know exactly what happened to him in previous years at Juve, at PSG, but for Roma, when he's been on, and he's there's no two ways about it. Your best midfield includes Paredes and Kone. But by this, I don't mean that Paredes is a player of the future. Paredes is on a 1-year contract. His contract will expire in 2026. So we are all aware of what the reality is with Paredes. But that's it. So let's see. Uh, Ciao. Yesterday I chatted with an AI and curiously they proposed that Zerbi as the best choice. What do you think? Well, it's the AI is dumb for a reason, guys. I'm not even going to comment on the idiocy of AI, but the Zerbi has been confirmed as Marseille's manager, so it's not going to happen. um, let's see. I wanted to just mention the to just round up this thing. Roma end the season, in my mind, with two games that show what kind of season it's been. The best game that Roma have played this season, in my opinion, is the derby that they win 2-0. That's the best game where Roma just put their foot on the pedal and they kill their opponent right off the bat. That, or I would also argue in favor of the match against Eintracht, which we also win 2-0. Angelino, Shomurodov, great game. It feels like in both times the atmosphere, the energy, and the way the team feeds off the crowd, that's what you want. That's the highest that we've been this season. When we saw the way the team responded to the fans and the way the crowd responded to the team actually putting effort. To me, that's the brightest lights that we've seen this season. I'm curious to hear what are your thoughts on that, because then immediately the opposite of that is whenever we were away from home, that energy completely dissipated. And so in my mind, the worst games of the season are Fiorentina Roma, Augsburg Roma, and Athletic Bilbao Roma. All three games away from the Olimpico, away from your fans, away from the adoration, away from the energy that sort of feeling of unity, of home, that made things possible for this team. And in my mind, oh, and another one, Verona Roma, 3-2. Games where we did not look like a team, where we looked sick, where we looked helpless, games that made me feel really ashamed of following this club. So Roma went from that to such great nights where we couldn't get enough. The duality of this team this season, it's unbelievable. I mean, it was someone, if you're talking about worst games, you can go through the whole catalog of Ivan Juric and his tenure at the club. Those 2 3 games that I mentioned, Fiorentina, Elfsborg, Verona, Bologna, the game that got Juric sacked, which unfortunately happened at the Stadio Olimpico. It was games where I felt hollow. I felt hollow because I was watching a team that was hollow. And I see people appreciate. Yeah, Elfsborg away was bad. Union San Gil was Roma too. Yeah, that's again. See it. Everything that happened outside of the Olimpico for a while reminded us how small we were. This team could not get out of their shell. They were crippled. They were absolutely crippled. Only when Granieri came in, that's when you get those players. That's when you get the surprises of the season. That's when you have Alexis Salzmaker make this unbelievable run of goals and assists. That's when you have Matias Sule emerge out of his shell. That's when you have Eldor Shomurodov all of a sudden, just out of the blue, come through for you and score goals when you need them most. Those surprises are made possible by Claudio Ranieri. That's why the thumbnail for this season review has Claudio Ranieri stamped on it, because this guy saved us. This guy saved us. The reason why we're here and why we can say that this was still overall, all things considered, a good season, because we managed to fight to the very end. We did not pretend to fight like we did in recent years, where we say, "Oh yeah, we're there, we're right there." There's a 7 point differential, but we're right there. No, this season we were playing until the very last second. That's all because of Claudio Ranieri. So a big, big thank you to Claudio. Final question, guys. Is Ranieri 100% not coming back? Tore up his credentials. He did not tear up his credentials, but he has 100% retired. This guy is not going to keep coming back. He will be a senior advisor to the Friedkins. He will be there for Roma. He will be guiding us, hopefully, for many years to come into the future, as Roma try to reorganize themselves. We will see what happens. Last question, Vic. What's your impression of Salahadin during the minutes he played after joining in the winter? I do believe I said it on here. I'm not critical of that winter transfer window. I think Devin Ranch and Gurna Duath are promising players. I haven't seen enough of Salahadin. I'm not sure. I don't know, but I'm not going to be criticizing him because it's always difficult when you enter that kind of reality. And the team at the time when he came in was doing so well, kind of like Victor Nelson. Obviously, Victor Nelson is going to leave Roma. He was only on loan, but it's difficult to get into the mojo of a team that is doing so well. Difficult to get into those rotations. Grazie mille, says Philip. Thank you so much, guys. Yeah, as I'm finishing this, guys, thank you so much again for supporting us. This has been a very long season. I appreciate all the interactions. I appreciate all the participation in these live streams. Again, I want to apologize that we had to put the podcast on hold. We hope to be back soon. We hope that John's recovery continues to improve, and we can get back to the podcast as soon as possible. In the meantime, I will keep adding extra content on the Patreon, which you can access if you sign up to our Patreon. And also, obviously, doing these live streams from time to time as we try to wrap our minds about what Roma are planning to do in this coming off season. So, on a final note, for the 2024-2025, thank you so much for supporting Roma Press. Thank you so much for being there for us, guys. As always, Forza Roma.